Konami! Greetings, I'm Solidus-Skully, and welcome to Count Dracula, aka Demon Castle Dracula, aka Vampire Killer, aka Castlevania for those of us who live in the real world. Yeah, why am I covering Count Dracula instead of Castlevania good and proper? Well, you'll see, as that little prompt will no doubt tell, but yes, things are mysterious, evil, Simon Belmondo. Yeah, we're pretty much just covering, classic Castlevania, and you might be wondering, why am I covering Count Dracula? Because repeating myself is good, evidently. Well, for one thing, there is an easy mode, so, yeah. I mean, in all seriousness though, this is basically meant to be a bit of a breather part in between commentaries, really. And a bit of a breather between, Silent Hill and Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, as I mentioned the credits of Silent Hill 1. Or I will am going to mention, as I'm recording this first before having recorded Silent Hill with brain. Ouch. But anyway, to kind of get back onto the whole difficulty thing before people start calling me the pussy of pussies, yeah, for reference, I have technically beaten the original Castlevania, as original as I can get. Again, you dig your heels in and grit your teeth, but I mean, I have fucking done it. It's just that, yeah, you might be noticing a few differences. Primarily the lack of knockback. Which isn't too much of a problem in the first level, because you have plenty of solid ground to really sort of secure your heels onto. Later levels tend to get a bit bottomless pit heavy, where the knockback becomes really fucking annoying, and the damage output, while a bit less of an issue for me, since again, if you're careful enough and know how to play through the game, as well as you can expect, then you can potentially, deal with a lot of hazards. Yeah, it basically just would have been more of a frustrating test and endurance, really, which, would have taken a bit longer to record, or would have had a lot more deaths to edit out, and, well, you will be seeing a few deaths here and there. It's, just more so for the sake of expedience, so, yeah. Now that that's all explained and taken away, Castlevania. The original, you might say. Yes. Yeah, anyway, released by Konami in 1986, and this is basically the result of, well, what happens when Konami decides, hello, we're Japanese developers, but what happens if we borrowed the universal Hammer Horror monster movie formula and put them all in one game and pray to the high heavens for whatever our Shinto god is that we aren't sued by Universal? And, yeah, that's pretty much it. Castlevania. To kind of get a bit of story context out of the way, in case that little intro screen didn't really tell you much of what's going on. Yeah, basically, every 100 years, Dracula is revived and the forces of darkness he commands, which appears to be a very multinational kind of thing, because, we have a Romanian vampire legend over here, who's also summoning mummies from ancient Egypt, Frankenstein, who I believe was from the, the European countryside, then we also have bloody, Eagles, we have zombies, basically all the forces of darkness you can muster, and it's pretty much up to one Simon Belmondo to save the day. I mean, I don't know, did they establish the whole Belmont family legacy of, like, the vampire killer and everything else? I don't think so, because I think it was a very bit, like, loosey-goosey at this stage. I mean, they certainly didn't establish the whole Belmont, magical feud with Dracula thing, so I think it's really just sort of a Simon Belmont is a hero from the 1600s who just has to save the day. Yeah, well, anyway, that was our first boss. A bat. And, no, that wasn't Dracula, in case you were wondering. I mean, he can turn into bat form, being his magical vampiric self, but no. Yeah, that was pretty much just our first boss, and later becomes a regular enemy by the time we hit stage 4, so the most powerful enemy in the main hall is just kind of a regular pish kind of guy. But in any case, in terms of any other differences between, easy and the harder/normal difficulties of regular Castlevania, is that, yeah, apart from the lack of knockback, you start off with about 30 hearts per beginning of the stage, and you get 9 lives as opposed to the typical 3. So again, I mean, it is easy technically, but it is also like the difficulty mode that I guess would probably be the best thing to play for newcomers. And again, the Famicom port, which is what Count Dracula is compared to the original arcade version and the Western release that was, Castlevania/Vampire Killer. Yeah, technically I suppose this was more of a legacy port, so they probably didn't really have to worry about, people returning this game after renting it for the weekend, nor do they have to worry about, people funneling in more coins, as was the typical arcade mentality of Konami making their money back in the day, so... yeah, that's pretty much why we got an easy mode, and eliminated some of the more slightly bullshitty things about Castlevania's difficulty, namely the knockback and, yeah, some of the more punishing aspects, because on top of also, you know, everything that I mentioned previously, yeah, if you happen to die, as a Simon, like, I mean, if you fall down a pit or lose all your health, yeah, you technically lose a lot of the bonuses you pick up, sub-weapons such as the cross that we picked up, as well as the Roman numeral 2, which pretty much allows you to fire sub-weapons twice and eventually 3 times, so... yeah, you don't lose that if you die. You do if you get a, you know, a complete game over and use a continue, but... yeah, that's pretty much the breaks, really. But all that aside, though, what is our basic gameplay thingy, Motron, as we play through the Castlevania? Well, all you really have at your disposal is the basic vampire killer. It starts off as a whip, but can be gradually upgraded into, you know, weapons such as, you know, a chain whip and a morning star. So again, it does gradually scale up in power the more you collect whip power-ups. You do have various sub-weapons that I've kind of neglected to talk about. I mean, we already have the cross that sort of acts as like a bit of a boomerang. We have the stopwatch that costs 5 hearts to use. And, yeah, we also have axes, we have knives, we have, a bunch of other things here and there. You heal Simon up by using pot roasts to, that are hidden in the wall. How the fuck they got there and why they're being roasted in the wall, I have no idea. Why you would even think to eat any of them is, anybody's guess, but I suppose our big boy needs the stamina. But yeah, it's also to talk about your collectibles, hearts. Kind of a morbid form of currency, but, you know, we're not gonna judge him. I don't even know what it's meant to represent. I mean, what is it saying to me, symbolically? I don't know, I guess maybe Simon's courage to use his weapons? Well. I mean, anyway, the point is that you require hearts to use your sub-weapons, apart from the stopwatch, which requires 5 hearts to use. Yeah, every other weapon just sort of requires 1 heart, so, yeah, you don't need to worry too much, it's just that don't go gung-ho with these sub-weapons, unless you absolutely need to, like in cases such as this, where you have these little dragon heads firing out little fireballs at you. So, yeah, what you can potentially do in order to stop some hazards is, yeah, use the stopwatch, stop the projectiles, and pretty much take them down while time is frozen. And that is something that you do need to pay attention to in Castlevania if you're not playing on some of the easier difficulties, and, well, I mean, to be honest, even if you are playing on some of the easier difficulties, yeah, some hazards will require you to either have the appropriate sub-weapon or just learn their patterns accordingly. Case in point here being with the Medusa heads, which fly in a set pattern, and you'll need to adequately time your jumps in order to, you know, dodge out of the way of them and make sure that you don't get caught in a bit of a recursive chronic hysteresis, because otherwise you are going to be buggered, my friend. And, yeah, this game, you know, it is NES hard for a reason. I mean, it is fair compared to most NES games, but if you know some of the strategies, like, in this case, using the stopwatch to pretty much take down Medusa right then and there, then, you know, you're gonna be buggered. But, yeah, you might be thinking I'm pretty much kicking ass and taking names because of easy mode, but, no, if you do know specific strategies, you can potentially make a few bosses a lot easier than they otherwise would be. But that's not gonna save you by the time we get to a certain point way through the game, because, yeah, but, like, from straight after this part, because, you know, we've made our way through the castle and we're saving the day, killing Dracula and killing people, whatever. Music quality, okay, I don't know why I was singing there, but yeah, by the time you make it, you know, I'd say about halfway through the game, then the difficulty ratchets up something fierce, and, yeah, speaking of which, we have the most annoying enemies in the game. Eagles or Fleamen? I have no idea what they're meant to be. They were probably called Fleamen in the aftermath because, oh no, we've finally reached the point when video games are popular enough that, Universal Studios was, turning their attention towards us. But yeah, all that aside though, as we get to, well, I'd say probably one of the more difficult levels. I can't remember if this is the first time where I die here, but yeah, I mean, this is usually about the point in even regular Castlevania where I usually end up carking it either due to careless playing skills or, you know, just getting pipped by enemies like the fucking ghosts here and, yeah, where the game starts to get a bit more bottomless pit heavy. Yeah, particularly when you get some of the bird enemies right over here. The crows! Which, I don't know, seem particularly tenacious. But yeah, it's here where the knockback begins to get particularly, fucky, because, again, it might not seem like it, because, again, a lot of NES games did have knockback, you know, all the way back in the day. It doesn't matter if you're on stairs, because, I mean, if you're locked onto the steps, then you'll pretty much stay still. But yeah, some NES, excuse me, some NES games did have knockback, but again, it wasn't really marginal enough so that if you weren't standing on the tippy edge of a pit, then you wouldn't really die. But Simon, comparatively, pretty much flies back when he gets hit like he's got a fucking rocket up his ass, and that's kind of unfair, especially when you have bottomless pits everywhere, and that's pretty much just the game's way of going, oh, fuck it, game over, you lost. And I don't know, that's just fucking irritating, to be honest. Ooh, will this be where I die? Probably, because, I mean, we have the tag team of Medusa heads and Skelly Willies throwing their boners at us. Oh no! Simon is dead, but... yeah, if this was Castlevania regular, good and proper, yeah, you would have lost your sub-weapons, you would have lost a fuckload of your hearts except for the basic 5, and, yeah, your lives. They would be draining something fierce, but if you are playing regular Castlevania and want to, you know, tackle things the hard way, then rest assured, you do have unlimited continues, so you can pretty much pick up right where you left off, and thank fuck for that, because otherwise, yeah, the game would have been quite difficult. And I mean, I say this, but I mean, it is still much fairer as a game compared to the likes of, say, you know, Ghosts and Goblins and, stuff like that, but... yeah, the difficulty is nothing to be trifled with, really. I mean, if you want to go classic NES games as far as you really want to, I mean, Castlevania is a good place to start, but... yeah, just be prepared to dig your heels in, because otherwise, well, the difficulty, she be getting mighty tight. I will say, though, like, I mean, in terms of artistry, though, like, I mean, Castlevania does look quite nice for an NES game. I mean, 8-bit graphics aside and character models of, you know, Simon or whatever, notwithstanding, like, I mean, you do get some pretty good, designed backgrounds. They get the gothic architecture feel of, you know, Dracula's castle down pretty nicely, and even as you progress throughout the game, actually, you do get to see, like, a nice little sense of progression, really, as, you know, you go from, like, the beginning castle hallway from where you start out, all the way off towards, you know, Dracula's tower, which I think it's around about here, actually, by the time we clear this little alcove. Well, yeah, you can see Dracula's tower in the background. That's where we need to go to face against the Prince of Darkness. But yeah, it's also around about here where the stopwatch stops being really useful. But yeah, don't get the knife. It's kind of useless. And besides, it's kind of short. I mean, call that a knife? This is a knife! But yeah, step to the center boss room, and now we face off against the mummy. How Dracula got this from ancient Egypt, I have no idea. Especially considering that this incarnation of Dracula is meant to be related to Vlad the Impaler, so... fuck it, whatever, really. But, again, stand on that little block over there, and you have pretty much a nice spot where if you can position it just right, yeah, you can pretty much take out the mummies no problem. Depending on if you have the health to withstand it, but don't worry, if you destroy that block, if you're feeling in a little bit of trouble, yeah, you can get some extra health, and, bada bing, we do the thing. So on that note, I am Solidus-Skully. Keep it new metal, and on this rather short part, next time, we're gonna be defeating Dracula and saving Transylvania. Goodbye, my spooky goopies of the night.